Why do you hate conservatives? From PragerU. I can think of a few reasons, but let's see what she has to say.
Why do you hate conservatives? Well, let's not say hate. Let's say dislike.
Honestly, the overriding factor right now is the specter of Donald Trump. That's probably the answer for most Americans, actually, and how the conservatives fell in line behind him and kept making excuses for him. Now he's gone now, so y'all have been given a chance to redeem yourselves, and you haven't. Yes, you're right, Natsuki. Let us indeed say hate. That is the appropriate word.
You don't really hate anyone.
I do hate. It is in my heart.
You may dislike them because they want to ban abortion. Conservatives say they're all for freedom, but when it comes to a woman's freedom to choose what she wants to do with her own body, they sing a different tune.
I mean, that's one reason.
You may dislike them because they oppress people of color and deny the fact that America is systemically racist. Conservatives say that everybody is equal regardless of race, and that racism has little to no effect on the daily lives of people of color.
But when we point it out, y'all just deny it anyway. When we have actual evidence, y'all say it's not real or it's fake news. The bigger problem here for why we hate y'all is not because you're being racist, like that's a big part of it, but it's because when we point out things, you deny reality. You know, we can only deal with that so much until we get sick of it.
So, they just ignore the issue altogether.
Like, for example, marijuana. Like, white people, black people use marijuana at the same rate across the country, but black people are disproportionately more likely to get convicted and sentenced for marijuana possession. I mean, that's a pretty big one. Overwhelmingly, black people are a lot more poorer than white people. We can give you evidence all day. Y'all don't care.
They dislike them because they don't believe in climate change.
True.
Scientists keep telling us we're overheating the planet, and conservatives don't seem to care. They're more concerned about profits than people.
Well, at this point, I think it's not profits that they're concerned about. It's just owning the libs.
But what good is money if you have no planet to spend it on?
For example here, some of you non-Americans may have never heard of this before. There's something called rolling coal. Rolling coal is the practice of modifying a diesel engine to emit large amounts of black or gray sooty exhaust fumes. Diesel fuel that has not undergone complete combustion. Predominantly North American phenomenon, rolling coal is sometimes used as a form of anti-environmentalism. This shit is just nasty. It's illegal in some states. What these people do is they modify their diesel vehicles to just put out this black shit. And it's usually just as a form of, you know, I'm owning the libs, I'm sticking it to the libs. They care about environmentalism, so I'm just gonna pump out all this shit. It is illegal in some states because it's a traffic hazard. It fucking is. Okay. Hot tip for all y'all, if y'all haven't driven diesel before, it's not supposed to look like that. This is not what it looks like normally. I'll be honest, I hate people who do this. And, you know, it's not liberals who do this.
Profits than people.
So yeah, like I said, it's not profits. It's just culture war bullshit. That's the reason why.
You may dislike them because they're obsessed with guns. How are we ever going to stop gun violence if we don't get guns off the streets?
That's a different argument, though. It's a very easy argument to say, actually. Yeah, some people are actually, like, unhealthily obsessed with guns. Like to the point where it's like, it's their personality. And it's like, you don't have anything else going on for you in your life. Like my guy. And some of the people who are really obsessed with guns, you're not handling them safely either. It's a stereotype that we've all seen it. Literally, I type in unsafe gun handling and we get like 8 surprising gun handling fails. Am I gonna watch someone get shot here? I might. Yeah, like this. Don't do this. This is the shit I don't like. Oh god. Oh my god. Oh. Okay, to be fair, hold on. To be fair, pistol grip shotguns like this are annoying as fuck. She's not holding it correctly, but They are kind of annoying to use. Okay, yeah, I feel like that music might be copyrighted. Look, you shouldn't fucking... Whoa, what is the stance? Oh my god, oh my god. See? These guys should know better. Oh my god. No, that's what I have a problem with. This is a separate argument altogether.
And how are we ever going to get guns off the streets if conservatives block every common sense gun law?
Okay, to be fair, there is something to be said for that. Like, for the longest time, the CDC was not allowed to use any of their funding to just research gun control measures. Like, that's fucking insane. Not implement, just research. Christ, why? That is, like, legitimately insane. There are certain conservative media figures who will talk about red flag laws and have a really violent opposition to them. But red flag law is kind of a large umbrella term. They don't really specify what they mean by that. A red flag law is a gun control law permits police to petition a state court to order temporary removal of firearms from a person who they believe may present a danger to others or themselves. This could vary for just so many different circumstances. Yeah, police, family members, or even doctors to petition a court to take away someone's firearms for up to a year, blah, blah, blah. This could go wide so many different ways. You're going through a divorce. I mean, that might be a little extreme, but sometimes it's like, I don't know, if this guy is like, got schizophrenia and he's like shooting in his backyard at random shit. I don't know. Maybe we should do something about that before he has a really bad day. That happens! Not most conservatives, to be fair, but certain ones like Caitlin Bennett will absolutely violently oppose red flag laws. But when you look at polling for stuff like that, when you give like an actual example like that, like even conservatives are like, yeah, there should be a process for that. When you put it to like a vote like that, you know, people are like actually fair about it. It's just a certain really vocal minority that are not.
You may dislike them because they're so intolerant. What's the harm of calling somebody by their preferred pronouns?
I've noticed it's never that simple, though. They always have to make like a big fucking show of it, a big spectacle, like Jordan Peterson and Elliot Page. You know, if Jordan Peterson was just like, well, I don't like that, but whatever, that would have been the end of it. But he didn't. He had to go on a fucking media circus about it.
Why can't conservatives just show some compassion instead of obsessing over every kind of behavior they don't like?
Okay, to be fair, everyone does this. I'll give you this one. Definitely don't look at like the lefty Twitter. Or just anyone on Twitter, actually.
Because if they got their way, they'd get rid of democracy and establish an authoritarian theocracy.
Yes. See, for example, Matt Walsh, open theocratic fascist. Well, there we go. That solves that, doesn't it?
Bye-bye separation of church and state. Hello, fascism.
Yes.
After all that, you might sum up conservatives with one word. Ugh.
Actually, you just did with fascism. Not ugh. Fascism. That's the correct word. Yes.
If any of this resonates with you, I get it. I've been there. But, and this surprised me.
Okay, hold on. Actually, side note, for something I just noticed, I'm blocking her. She got a sick tattoo sleeve, though. Yo, that's pretty sick.
And this surprised me. I found they actually have reasons for thinking the way they do.
Well, yeah, and Hitler had reasons for, you know, going on his warpath and trying to exterminate everyone he didn't like. It was, you know, he was really just trying to keep the race nice and strong. That's how he viewed it. He had his
Here
reasons.
are some of them. On abortion.
That was sarcasm. Thank you.
To start, we can agree that no one likes abortion. But there is a clear divide on the issue.
I like abortion. I do it for fun.
Progressives focus their attention on the mother. Conservatives, while they have compassion for the mother, focus their attention on the baby.
They don't have compassion? How? By banning abortion just flat outright. Here's a good example. So y'all remember kind of recently there was this woman, she was at Twitch. She did this thing where she like jumped into the pit, the foam pit, and like broke her back.
Oh my god!
Here she is talking about something.
And then also like I don't care, everyone's gonna know, but I was pregnant and I didn't find out until I was in the hospital. So I also have like crazy hormones. I'm not pregnant anymore because of the surgery. I couldn't keep it. But my hormones are just also through the fucking roof because of that.
So she doesn't really explain it any further beyond that. She was pregnant. She didn't know it. She couldn't have gone through the surgery that she needed having a fucking pregnancy at the same time. A flat outright ban on abortion altogether would basically prevent her from getting the life-saving surgery she needed. You talk about compassion, and yet your actions don't have the compassion you claim that you do. That's just like the big recent example that comes to mind. You know, a flat outright ban is not compassionate.
Focus their attention on the baby. They see a human being growing in a mother's womb as innocent and vulnerable.
And while we're at this, about 10-20% of known pregnancies end in miscarriage. Actual number is much higher, because most occur early in pregnancy before you even know.
Those babies deserve to be protected, since they obviously can't protect themselves.
I'm sorry. This is not a substantive argument, but look at her eyes as she's saying this.
Those babies deserve to be protected, since they obviously can't protect themselves.
I don't know. That blinking is suspicious.
On racism, conservatives don't deny that
True.
racist people exist, but when it comes to the narrative of systemic racism, conservatives are unconvinced.
Okay, I don't care.
Of course, there are disparities in this country.
Well, there you go, isn't it?
But why assume that these disparities are because of racism?
Probably because you can see them along racial lines, and sometimes it's literally a direct parallel to worser moments in the past. Some of this stuff is quite literally can be drawn back to Jim Crow laws and segregation laws. The lines still kind of exist today. Like, they never really changed.
Good schools, good parents, good habits, and good communities would go much further toward alleviating poverty and expanding opportunity than a lifetime of racial justice movements.
Yeah, but like the same school is desegregated now, yay, but it still serves like the poor side of town, which is where all the black people are. So it's still kind of a poor school. It doesn't really change. Just desegregation wasn't really enough to actually fix things. Parents, habits, and communities. Yeah, but the same thing still stands. They didn't have good habits, good parents, or good communities. That part was still never fixed. That's a lot of work that you gotta do. And it's only been like, what, 3 or 4 generations since the Civil Rights Act. There's still more to be done, not to mention, the war on drugs.
Would go much further toward alleviating poverty and expanding opportunity than a lifetime of racial justice movements. By the way, these rules apply to everyone, regardless of skin color. On climate change.
Yeah, yes, I agree with that. They do. It's just, for the longest time within the United States, it was extremely unfair for people of a certain skin color, and now it's more fair, but the unfairness hasn't explicitly been addressed. You have the best parents in the world. They have to work 50 hours a week plus 4 commute each day. You'll spend a long time apart from them. This is true as well.
On climate change. Conservatives have very little faith in computer models that have been inaccurately predicting disaster for nearly half a century.
Computer models that have been inaccurately predicting disaster for half a century. Okay.
Conservatives have a lot of faith, however, in human
the computer models they made in the 70s for climate change. Hi folks, editing attack here. So I decided just to go on the PragerU website and see if there was anything about this. They have a source here. Conservatives have very little faith in climate change computer models that have been inaccurately predicting disaster for nearly half a century. And the source is an opinion piece from the Washington Examiner. Computer models of the climate are at the heart of calls to ban the cheap, reliable energy that powers our thriving economy and promotes healthier, longer lives. Front-loading a lot into this. For decades, these models have projected dramatic warming from small fossil-fueled increases in atmospheric concentrations of carbon dioxide with catastrophic consequences. And this source leads to the Cato Institute. So if you're not familiar, Cato Institute, they're not scientists, they're not researchers, they're not journalists. It's an American libertarian think tank headquartered in Washington, D.C., founded by Ed Crane, Molly Rothbard, and Charles Koch. All right, that's a great conflict of interest right off the bat. Now, I read through all of this. The Cato Institute thing is a blog post talking about the testimony from 2015 of Dr. John Christie. Now, if you're not familiar with this, you can read all the testimony. It's all here online. I guess I could probably link this in the description. A lot of it is kind of flawed. So I guess this graph here is the big thing he's referring to. He's pointing out So the central claim, I guess, is all these other models, see, they all said they were going to be higher. The temperature was going to be higher, but in actuality, we're only a little bit higher. One large criticism of his testimony was that Christie was not taking a full aggregate of data and was kind of focusing more on temperatures recorded by specific balloons and satellites. This, of course, is not even acknowledging the obvious argument that the numbers are still trending upwards here. There is something else in his testimony that really jumped out at me here. Christie used an argument that the number of wildfires within the United States is actually kind of less than it was back in the 60s and 80s, and that the number of wildfires has more or less remained consistent over the last few decades. This is true. However, when you look at total area burned, it tells a different story. So that's nice, but I got something else for you. Global Temperature Report from the Earth System Science Center, University of Alabama in Huntsville. One of the two scientists working on this is John Christie. This is his own data. Monthly global lower troposphere. Notably, it's been 6 years since his White House testimony in 2015. Even his own data here shows a massive fucking spike. Sure, it may not be what some of the other claims in the 1970s said, but wow. We can also find this BuzzFeed article saying some of his older studies have been repeatedly corrected. We've also got this Guardian article, a revealing interview with top contrarian climate scientists. This is an interesting article because even when I was glancing through some of Christie's claims, I found some problems, like the fire thing. This Guardian article gets into some better detail about some of the errors and what he says. It's worth reading, but we're already on such a tangent now.
Conservatives have a lot of faith, however, in human ingenuity to overcome climate.
To overcome
What is air
climate?
conditioning but a human adaptation to the environment?
It's hard for me to not say an ableist slur in a response to this.
See Miami or Phoenix for further reference.
Alright, that's actually a really bad example. Let me show you something. Guys, climate change isn't real, and if it was, we have air conditioning. What's the big deal about it? This is from last year. Gila Bend residents review damage after deadly flooding. Let's go.
Still recovering from a deadly first night of flooding there.
Sadly, at least 2 people have died and dozens were forced from their homes. Our Elliot Polikoff has been in Gila Bend all evening. Elliot, how is the community there doing tonight?
Show us the flooding.
Whitney and Spencer, Gila Bend is a pretty small, tight-knit community. Most people here know each other, and pretty much everyone I spoke to said that last night's flooding, that's just not something that happens in this area. Obviously now, there's some pretty extensive damage in Gila Bend, but those that live here, they're trying to keep. Pretty much everyone I spoke to said that last night's flooding, that's just not something that happens in this area.
Gee, have we heard that before?
Obviously now, there's some pretty extensive damage in Gila Bend, but those that live here, they're trying to keep things in perspective.
Show us the flooding. Yeah.
We didn't expect this at all, you know?
Ty Turner, his girlfriend Star, and their daughter Michaela were sleeping last night when the water levels started to rise.
Luckily, her little brothers came in and woke us up because we would have, either drowned or we would have woke up a little bit worse, not save anything.
With some help from local firefighters, Ty and his family were able to get to their roof where a helicopter took them to safety. And they weren't the only ones.
This is fucking Arizona. This isn't like New Orleans where fucking Hurricane Katrina comes. This is Arizona, the desert, and helicopters are rescuing people from their roofs because of flooding. The air conditioning's not going to solve this.
Crews from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, Gila Bend Fire Department, and several other first responders were out all day looking for people impacted by the flooding.
Yeah, it came in quick and unexpected, and that's why we tried to do the best we can with all the warnings, staying out of flooded roadways, staying out of washes.
But for some residents in the area, it was hard to fully prepare for something like this because there was nothing to compare it to.
This is like the first time I ever seen it like this, get this bad. We never get any rain since this was the first time. It was shocking for me.
As for Ty and his family, they're coming to terms with the fact that most of their belongings are gone.
Check this out. This is a picture of the flooding. This is Arizona. This is where I live.
This is not to say we should simply do nothing. Nuclear power, for example, holds so much promise as a renewable and safe energy source.
So are you agreeing about climate change existing, or what is this?
Conservatives don't understand why environmentalists oppose it.
I mean, people oppose it because of the horrors of Chernobyl and shit. I mean, I'm fine with it. It's fine. Another thing that doesn't get mentioned is that building a nuclear power plant is significantly more expensive than your coal and natural gas power plants and your windmills, your wind turbines and solar, it requires a significantly larger startup cost. And frankly, investors don't want to fund it. Not to mention, it takes like 10, 20 years to get a nuclear power plant up and running. I could see why investors, don't want to do it, because it's like, what, I gotta wait 20 years to start getting money back?
It makes them skeptical and suspicious that the real agenda behind the environmentalist movement is not saving the planet, but giving more power to the government to control people's lives.
Yeah, and that's just insane and asinine. Yeah, we're giving the government more power to control people's lives by promoting solar panel usage. See, that falls apart really rapidly, doesn't it? Because solar panels now allow you to be disconnected from entire electrical grids and not even have to worry about being connected to the larger grid at all. That's kind of the opposite, isn't it? Yeah, and another part of this, nuclear power, it's a whole lot cheaper now to just retrofit coal power plants and retrofit them so now they burn natural gas. Natural gas, much cheaper, much better for the environment, much easier to get compared to coal. The real big factor here is, of course, money. That's always what these things come down to. She doesn't back that claim up at all. How would any of the climate change stuff be involved with the government having more power to control people's lives? She doesn't explain that. And then she moves on to the next
guns.
One. Sad. So sad.
We all want to live in a safe society.
All right, guns. Yes.
This is why firearms are regulated in every state.
Yes. To some extent, yes, they are.
We know bad guys will always find a way to get guns. See Chicago and Baltimore for further.
We know bad guys will always get guns. See, for example, not the most violent cities, but some of the semi-more violent cities that have large populations of black people.
That's why conservatives want guns, to protect themselves from the bad guys.
To be honest, though, that is a fair line of logic. Adding to that, though, what if sometimes just a simple law here and there might actually be enough to protect you from the bad guys? Now, in an individual level, that might not mean too much to you, right? But in a nation of 340 million people, sometimes just doing a little thing like that might be enough to shave off a few thousand murders. This part they really don't like. There is some pretty strong evidence that states with stronger gun control have lower suicides. Scrolling down here, suicide by firearm is the majority of deaths by firearm, 54%. More than twice as many suicides by firearm occur in states with the fewest gun laws relative to states with the most laws. When you say, well, bad guys are always going to get guns, but someone who's trying to commit suicide that doesn't really apply to them, does it? And of course, other methods of suicide usually require a lot more investment or are not as reliable, so they're not as likely to work. But that is a different argument, admittedly.
On tolerance, conservatives see tolerance as a two-way street. If someone demands to be addressed by certain pronouns and considers it intolerant if you don't comply, conservatives wonder why that isn't intolerant. Why are a conservative's moral or religious beliefs less worthy of respect than anyone else's?
But I've got my whole life with y'all fucking treating the rest of us like we are less worthy of respect than you are. Every fucking day you hear Christians talk about the people they don't like are gonna burn in hell for eternity. That's actually incredibly fucked up. Hold on, there was a good question here.
To be addressed by certain pronouns and considers it intolerant if you don't comply, conservatives wonder why that isn't intolerant.
Why that isn't intolerant. But that's not exactly how it turns out, isn't it? That's not how it pans out. That's not how it manifests. It manifests like this.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
It manifests in fucking deranged lunatics screaming about the transes. And if we're being honest here, Elliot Page, fucking bae. I love you, Elliot Page. You're great. Elliot Page has shown no disrespect to Jordan Peterson or anyone, really.
On authoritarianism. Whenever conservatives win political power, they're typically trying to cut taxes and regulations, make
Well, hold on.
Whenever conservatives win political power, they're typically trying to cut taxes and regulations, make the government smaller, and bolster constitutional freedoms like that of
Ooh.
speech and religion.
But bolstering constitutional freedoms like speech of religion is kind of contradictory to cutting regulations and making the government smaller. This is not what Donald Trump fucking did. What regulations did Donald Trump cut? He did cut some taxes, but what regulations did he cut? No one can ever answer that. How did he make the government smaller? Yeah, Daily Beast. Trump added more to the national debt than Obama and Bush. President Trump added $7.8 trillion. And they say bolster constitutional freedoms like freedom of speech and religion, yet, of course, Trump tried to implement his own secret police.
Freedoms like that
he
of
tried to overturn the election. He didn't care about the Constitution. He wiped his ass with the
speech and religion. That doesn't sound very authoritarian, does it? Progressive
Yeah, that's what you say, and yet we live through it.
policy almost always raises taxes,
Yes, based.
expands regulations,
Yes.
increases the size of government,
Debatable.
and now curtails free speech.
And no. Can you prove that last one there? I can't believe these progressive people told me to not shit on the sidewalk. This is authoritarianism.
To a conservative, that sounds authoritarian.
To a conservative, telling someone to wear a mask to stop the spread of a deadly pandemic is authoritarianism, even though it's like, I'm a gas station worker and I literally don't care. I'm doing what my boss told me.
Their arguments. Do you dislike conservatives less than you did before?
Oh, no mention of any of COVID? That's nice.
Not even a little?
Oh, do you dislike conservatives a little less than before? I don't know. I still remember January 6th. I still remember the big lie. I still remember y'all backed the presidential candidate who lost the election and then tried to overturn it and tried to steal it because he couldn't accept the fact that he lost because he's a big fucking loser man baby with baby hands. Y'all still fucking fall in line for this shithead.
I'm Amla Epinobi, host of Unapologetic at PragerU.com for Prager University.
I hope it's worth it, Amala. I hope the money is worth it. Thank you to last month's patron backers: ASU Asian Woman, Benjamin Kessler, Boris Lowe, Ian Diaby, Here Comes the Rat, James Paul, Jai Polamo, Jenna Sweet, Lionel, Mellow Cheddar, and Xylorp.